That video, I think what's really cool about that is how much it impacted so many people to start practicing breath work or start trying cold therapy. And I've heard so many stories from people who are like, I was really struggling with my health, or I was really struggling with my mental health, and I started doing this and it like changed everything. And that's the coolest part about that method is that it deeply impacts like your mind.
We're back, baby, with a brand new season of the It's Fucking Spiritual podcast. Join us each week as we have unfiltered conversations about how to transform your life. Our mission is to usher in a new era of spirituality where you don't have to be all love and light to live a life of alignment. Here, we honor all of it, the profound and the profane, the magic and the messy, and all things that make you human. So let's discuss the truth behind transformation and be unapologetic in our evolution. From manifestation to money, embodiment to energy, and all taboo topics, nothing is going to be off limits. Are you ready to live a life that feels just as good as it looks? Let's get fucking spiritual. Hey, what's up, you guys, and welcome back to another episode of the It's Fucking Spiritual podcast. I am so excited for this episode today because I get to interview someone who has literally tried so many different things in the wellness and spiritual spaces, and we're going to get to hear her stories and pick her brain today. And I'm just really stoked because I feel like we're going to learn a lot of stuff in this episode. She is a YouTuber, a content creator, video editor, and she has a huge YouTube channel. You've probably heard of her, Sky Life, with over 400,000 subscribers. And she literally follows people around and like tries all of these different wellness things, spirituality things, and alternative lifestyles. So I'm really excited to hear all of her stories today. Sky, welcome to the show.
Yay, thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited for you to be here. And we've been connected on the internet for quite some time. And you've had so many different friends of mine on your show. And I've gotten to watch some of your videos. And I love how you produce them. You're an incredible storyteller. And honestly, to do what you do, you have to be so open-minded and like just available to try all the different things. And it's just, I've never seen anybody else be able to like create what you've created. So I'm excited for you to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, you're so welcome.
It's definitely a labor of love, and it comes from my soul and my heart, and I deeply enjoy it. And it can be also kind of crazy sometimes.
It's a lot. I know. I'm like, before we started filming, I'm like, how you literally travel to people and tell the story and produce all of it. I'm like, this show feels like a lot. So I can only imagine how intense that's got to be sometimes, and how much you have to like really be behind what it is that you do. And I think it's so important that, like what you're doing and sharing and making this information accessible for people is really beautiful. So
yeah, that's what it's all about, you know, is I hope that the videos are entertaining and sometimes humorous and also deep, and, you know, go kind of take the viewer on a roller coaster ride.
Totally.
Of what I experience when I document these things often is like that. It's just a whole ride.
Yeah.
I'm riding the wave, and then I kind of afterwards figure out how I want to tell that story.
So good. Yeah. And I want to get into all the different stories that you have, because I know there are many. But for anybody listening to this, and I would be curious to hear like what even inspired you to start the channel, and what is kind of like your story into what you're doing and creating now?
So I've been into making videos since I was really young. And in high school, I had a talk show with my friend called Chit Chat with Sky and Kat.
I love that.
And we would interview our friends from our high school, like on the show. And we just kind of messed around and had fun. And I just fell in love with producing media. And then I studied television news reporting in college and was very much training to become like a news reporter person. And during that time, I just realized that wasn't the path for me. I didn't resonate with the news industry. In my heart, I just felt like there's something that was out of alignment, but I deeply love all the skills of shooting and editing and storytelling and reporting and the journalistic piece of it. So I kind of decided to take all of that and then go down an alternative path. And after college, I worked for a media company. I worked for a YouTuber. I worked for a fitness brand, and like saw all the different angles of how you could create, you know, your own digital media company essentially. And then I just had a lot of ideas for videos I wanted to make that were centered around what I'm most passionate about, which is wellness and spirituality. And I just wanted to make the videos. So I decided to launch my YouTube channel. And in the beginning, it was very much an experiment and a side hustle and just something I was like trying to figure out how to do. And I fell in love with it to the point where I'm like, okay, I want to do this full time. I want this to be my own dream job that I'm like co-creating in real time. And so after 2 years, I went into doing it full time. I've been doing it for 6 years now. And it's taken me down like a whole, a whole different path than I really expected in the beginning. But I always say like my spiritual path has kind of like coincided with the evolution of my channel. And I didn't expect how much it would be this path of self-discovery. So yeah, that's kind of how it all unfolded.
Wow. It's so good and so beautiful. It's like how our stories unfold, we never know, but you can always connect the dots looking backwards and you just see your evolution. And it's been the same for me. Like even in the podcast, it's like we had the first season in the first era and now this era is completely different. And what I talk about some of it's the same, but a lot of it has evolved like as I have, which I think people love following that journey. So, okay. So I want to get into like stories and things you've learned. What's one of the most like wildest thing? Because you do like so many different things on the channel. Is there one? And do you have any like crazy stories where like I flew over here and did this thing? Like tell us what some crazy things you've done.
There is one of my favorite videos on the channel that I feel like is one of the worst performing videos. Actually, two. I have two that are in that category of like, I feel like as a creator and an artist and a documentarian, they're like two of my absolute favorite videos, but they both flopped.
Doesn't it always work like that? Right? I'm like, oh, this is going to be so awesome. And then it's like the one that does the least. You're like, what? And then the one that goes viral, you're like,
you put no effort into
exactly.
It. Yeah, it's always that way. I'm like, wow, is this like why? But then you realize that, okay, you do it for the experience and the passion of creating it, not the outcome. And so I'll share the first one is a few years ago. I have a YouTuber friend named Dakota, and he has a really cool YouTube channel called Dakota of Earth, and he goes into some of the most wild situations all over the world, and it goes into very taboo places, and he'll spend time with like the Agori in India, like the cannibals of India, and all of these like very fringe subcultures, and he will spend time with all sorts of characters and people. And so he had done a video with this Satanist in Mexico, in the witchcraft capital of Mexico called Catemaco. And this is this small town that's like all the brujos and the brujas and the witches and the wizards and the satanic people are there. And he invited me to go there.
Oh my God. Were you scared?
Oh yeah, so I was terrified, but the documentarian in me was so interested and intrigued and curious. And so he's like, hey, if you come down, like I have full access if you want to come to his spiritual center, this man named Enrique. And so he's known as like, the Satanist lord of the town, whatever. And he has this property that actually like a lot of the celebrities and politicians of Mexico go on the equinox and they do like a big ritual with like a full goat sacrifice and like traditional ritual and stuff. Wow. And he also has a underground lair with a giant statue of the devil.
No.
And the statue has like a giant dick.
Wait, did you see this?
Yeah, I went. And
so you saw this in person. You were in the lair.
Yeah, there's a full video. That's what I'm saying. There's a full video of this that just flopped on my channel.
Linking the video because now everyone's going to watch it. We're going to get the views way up.
Okay. We need to blow this video up because it's so wild and crazy and fascinating and also kind of funny. Like the way that I produced it and edited it ultimately ended up having like this kind of hint of parody because it's just so ridiculous. And Enrique, as a human, he's like so quirky and funny and like,
and he's the Lord guy.
He doesn't seem like he's this evil satanic guy. He's just such a normal like dad.
Oh my God. What? Okay. I have so many questions already. So number one,
how
how do you guys get access to these places? And like, they're okay with you bringing cameras and like putting it on YouTube? How does that work? And I'm sure each person's different depending on.
Yeah. So in this case, Dakota had the access to this person.
And you have no idea how he like.
Well, he's just like that. Like he just goes to these places and then somehow finds these amazing people and characters. And this guy, Enrique, he had done some other media. I think he did a Vice thing, but he was totally cool. He's like, yeah, like anything you want to do. He even set up this whole ritual with all of like the witches in his coven. And they did this whole ritual for me, which is like a separate video. And that was a really beautiful, like feminine empowerment, white magic ritual. And it was so sweet and empowering and like about, you know, working with the elements of nature. And I love that video too. But yeah, that whole experience is one of my favorites. And yeah, you asked if I was scared. I was actually really scared. And I kind of energetically prepared myself going into it and wanted to make sure I was aware of like what I was walking into energetically. But I realized from that, you know, I really feel like our mindset and our perception of reality is reality. And I kind of had this realization during that, like I could be there as a observer, even immerse myself in the experience and not like make it mean anything or like put like, it's all about intention. So if I'm going there with the intention of like, I want to do satanic magic, like that's not in alignment with my intention. My intention is going there as a documentarian observer with like neutral curiosity to see like what I can learn from this experience, even though it's something I might have preconceived judgment of. And from that, I learned so much about like why, you know, they do this or why he believes this. And I don't need to believe that or resonate with it for me to still learn from the questions I'm asking and the answers I'm receiving from him. So that's a huge mission of the channel, is like just shifting from judgment to curiosity, letting the inner child's, like the minds of the child's lead the way in going into these experiences with an open mind.
Wow, that's amazing. And that's I'm so glad you brought that up because it's so important. And I think as we're on our journeys of evolution, like to have that open mind and to be able to say like, hey, I might not actually like resonate with the place that this is coming from, or this, like, there's pieces of it that maybe are not something that I would adopt in my life, but like I can take the learnings and the lessons and like, yeah, like the challenges of it. And like, it sounds like you just integrate so many of those things so beautifully in your life. And again, like even to what I said at the beginning, it's like, you have to have such an open mind to do this. And it's so cool. And I think it's so important to be able to like showcase different alternative ways of being, because other people can learn through that, you know, we can learn through each other in all different ways. So that's really cool.
100%.
And wild.
It's yeah. And you realize that I think it's our projected judgment of things that typically we don't understand or have fear of that are creating the inner turmoil and agony and like tension. Whereas if you can just like drop that and just release any of the fear and judgment that's really just coming from like that part of us that maybe wants to naturally judge, it's trying to keep us safe, it's a little bit in the ego, you realize that like, oh, when I can just like be neutral and just see life through this kind of like observer perspective, I don't know, it just offers me a lot more peace and a lot more learning. And like, I feel that, you know, we all are naturally prone to judgment as humans, just like just part of how we're designed. But I feel like part of our evolution is kind of like letting go of that too.
Yeah. And what a beautiful parallel to like what we get to do for ourselves in our lives. Like, if you can observe other people with curiosity, can you observe yourself with curiosity? And that's so much of what I talk about even on this podcast, of like not judging yourself for the emotions or the reactions or the things that happen in your life, you know, but like, how can you observe yourself? So that's really beautiful. I love that.
Yeah. Most of our projected judgment comes from judgment from self. First and foremost. Yeah.
Yeah. So good. Okay. So that sounds like a wild story, and I'm totally going to go stalk you after I watch that specific video.
Yes.
And you've tried so many different modalities, and I mean, like from Wim Hof to like, you had Mia who's been on the show, and like the witchcraft stuff and different like rituals. And is there anything that sticks out for you that you're like, this was a modality that really changed my life, and like maybe you still do it, or like you have a moment where it's like, I had a massive shift internally through experiencing that, and like I wasn't the same.
Yeah. Well, so many of them have impacted me long term, which is really cool to look back and just be like, wow, so many of these things that I've tried have really shifted me in different ways. But I think one that comes up is I did a darkness retreat a few years ago, and that had a noticeably lasting impact on my ability to be present. And I went into the darkness therapy, which was a 5-day darkness retreat. And there's also a video on the channel about this, and that was a whole process to figure out how do we document that, and how do I like process my experience through sharing the story of it.
Yeah.
I did it on the summer solstice, which was really interesting because I was going into darkness during like the lightest, brightest time of the year. So like the polarity of that was really interesting. But the owner of the retreat center, Scott, he kind of asked me going in, he said, what you can really meditate on in this experience is what is your core desire? And going in with that question to ponder through the experience really became clear to me that my core desire is presence. And from that experience, I feel that there has been a major shift in my ability to be present in my life in general, because I previously feel I was extremely future oriented and I was just subconsciously running for a lot of my life. And then to bring awareness to like what I really deeply value is how much I can deepen into the present moment. Like that has been such a gift to receive that through that experience.
Yeah.
And it's even one of the core values of my company is presence, is like, how can we bring presence and immersive, energy to everything that we do to just be here now. So yeah, darkness therapy is it's a very potent medicine.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of friends that have done it. It's been calling me as well. Did you go to Sky Cave? Okay. That's where I feel like everybody goes.
So good. I know their wait list is like 3 years now.
It's so long now. Oh my gosh. And you did it a few years ago, probably when it was first becoming a thing.
Yeah.
And what was the experience like for you in there? Like, were you freaked out before you turned out the light, or?
I mean, I was really scared. And it's so interesting because my mom, out of all the things that I've done, for some reason, she was the most scared of me going into the darkness, which is so interesting that I've done all these crazy things. And like, she was terrified.
She's like, go be with a Satanist.
Yeah.
Like, that's totally fine. But like in the dark for 4 days, absolutely not.
She's like, I can't contact you. Like, are you going to be safe in there?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. So, and I do think there's just like a general fear of like, well, what happens when you are putting yourself into an environment like that where you could potentially have some type of like psychosis, or people have had their natural DMT come online and like hallucinations, almost like some type of psychedelic plant medicine journey, but sober. And so there is like unknown. But I found it to be a lot easier than I expected.
Really?
Yeah.
You're the first person I've ever heard to say that.
A lot of people like were saying how hard it was for them. And I was expecting it to be really challenging. And I feel like it was challenging in many ways, but I also wanted to stay. Like by the end, I was like, I don't want to leave. I was in such a deep bliss state that happened probably like the last 24 hours. I was just in like pure bliss mode, and it was so good. And I did have to work through a lot to get to that point. But I feel like when you just allow yourself, as you said, to kind of like express your emotions without judgment, they pass so much easier when you just let go of any resistance. And so I kind of like allowed myself that process in there. You have full range to just scream and release, because you're alone in like a dark
You're like
cave.
Underground, right?
Underground.
Yeah, for anybody listening to this that doesn't know what we're talking about, we're talking about darkness. Yeah, like I just assume that, and I forget because like so many of our friends and we're in that community. But anyone listening to this, it's a darkness retreat. Where did you do 4 days?
So I did 5 days.
5 days. Okay.
But technically, like the front end and the back end were like integration almost. But I was in there for I think it was 86 hours straight,
Okay.
100 hours total with like, you do like the first day you're in the darkness, you like come out, then you go in for like the full time, then you come out, then you go back in for like the last
You
night
come
to,
out of the room.
to like integrate. Yeah.
Okay.
But like it was straight for, I guess it was 4 days. Yeah. 86 hours straight. Yeah.
Okay, wow. Yeah, if you guys see on Instagram where people like lift up their blindfold and they're always crying, that's from these retreats coming out of the darkness. So it's where you like basically stay underground, or you can explain it if you want. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's basically an environment that deprives you of all light and sound as well. And it's just a very simple room underground with a bed and a bath and a bathroom. And the idea is to eliminate, the sense of sight. You can talk, it's not like a silent retreat, but yeah, we're just not used to being in an environment where we can't see if we have the ability to see normally, right? And that, it's an experience that is kind of designed to foster that introspection and reflection and slowing down and meditation. And I slept a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Which is probably why I liked it so much. I just wanted to take a nap all day.
I think a lot of people do. It's a major nervous system reset.
Yes. Like it's so needed because I'm definitely somebody that like puts my nervous system in overdrive a lot of the times. It's very much my default state. So it felt so nourishing to take that time to just rest and reset everything.
Yeah.
And to get clear. And I feel like it provides such deep clarity. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you're making me want to do it. Like, yeah.
Highly recommend.
Yeah. Maybe I'll have to get on the wait list now.
yeah,
3
right.
years. Okay, beautiful. So presence with the underground. Is there anything else that's like coming through that you're like, oh, I learned this lesson, or this is really big? I'm just like, I'm so here for the stories.
Yeah, for
there's
sure.
so many.
Well, yeah, there's been so many ones that have taught me so much. I feel like the Wim Hof Experience was pretty deep.
And that was your first really big video, right?
That was when I first started my channel.
Was that the moment where you were like, okay, this is going to work? Like, there's like moments I feel like in my career where I've been like, oh, whoa, okay, this is like, I'm here.
Right.
Like, did you have that?
I don't know. I still felt like I had the worst imposter syndrome ever for that whole project. So even when it came out, I couldn't really receive what was happening or understand that maybe that would be like a pivotal thing because I was so just like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And just doing it just like to try. I don't know. That was the beginning of my journey. And then all of a sudden I'm like with Wim Hof and my YouTube heroes on this whole adventure that was absolutely like fundamentally changed my perception of like what I'm capable of. So I'll just explain it and then we can talk about it. But so most people know of Wim Hof, but we went to do a whole week of extreme cold therapy and cold. It wasn't not therapy. It was like extreme, like
traumatizing.
Yeah, it was like, whoa. Extreme cold training, like superhuman training, where we did various activities to really activate, the fight or flight system of survival. Like his whole thing with us was we didn't even do any of his breathing techniques or meditation techniques. He just like threw us in to the deep end. Literally, we get there and he's like, okay, we're gonna jump off that cliff into the
You're like
freezing
in
cold
snow
water in
and
snow in the dead winter in northern Poland.
Are you in a bathing suit?
Yeah. So we
like bikini,
full on bikini, and I'm with all guys, and it's just like boom, like jump off the cliff, bitch.
Yeah, it's very hyper masculine, like energy.
Yeah,
doing it for the plot, doing it for the video.
Yeah. So immediately, we all jump off the cliff into the freezing cold water. Then he has us doing a 10-minute ice bath in the freezing river, and then 3 days in or whatever, we're hiking Mount Śnieżka, which is this mountain in Poland on the border of Poland and Czech Republic. We're hiking this mountain in a full-blown snowstorm in just shorts and for me a sports bra. And
So you're just like shaking the whole time. Like, what do they do about hypothermia? Like,
well, that's the whole thing with Wim Hof is like you're training your mind to be able to control the body to the point where you don't get hypothermia. Like we think that we don't realize how much our body really is capable of actually doing. So, so no, we did not get hypothermia, but I thought that I might.
what about like your fingers? Like,
No, yeah. I mean, I think I had gloves on for the hike. I have to check. Maybe it was I had them on. I had a hat on, but like that taught me again about presence. It really comes back to that because the only way that I could like get through that experience was just breath by breath and step by step. It was just one step after another, one breath after another, and just deepening into the present moment. And yeah, that video, I think what's really cool about that is how much it impacted so many people to start practicing breath work or start trying cold therapy. And I've heard so many stories from people who are like, I was really struggling with my health or I was really struggling with my mental health. And I started doing this and it like changed everything. And that's the coolest part about that method is that it deeply impacts like your mind.
Yeah.
And it definitely did that for me. And then after that experience, I was like, okay, well, I did that. Like, what else can I do? You know? And I definitely had like an adrenaline crash after that experience though. Because your adrenaline, your cortisol do like go really high to like keep you alive.
Sure.
And then I just couldn't like get out of bed for a week or whatever.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I get that. Wow. So cool. I mean, I feel like you've had so many just insane experiences. You're gonna have to like write a book one day about all of them.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think to your point about people like watching these videos and then, you know, trying things for themselves. I think that's what's so impactful about what it is that you do is because you take things that people might see as woo-woo or weird or, you know, very out there fringe ideas. And it's like bringing them in a way that makes them relatable and accessible. And I think that's one of the most impactful things we can do is like create a bridge for so many people to try these different things. And you're doing it in a way that's entertaining and also educational. And like, that's just, I just give you like a lot of acknowledgement for that because like, that's something I always say. I'm like, we need more people doing this work, talking about it in a way that's relatable and accessible and all the things. So thank you for doing that.
It's definitely my soul's purpose.
Yeah.
It's my dharma to do it. And I usually go into a lot of these situations pretty skeptical, but now I've done it for so long that I feel like that skeptic in me has kind of just like, it's not as prominent as it used to be.
Yeah.
Because then you just, after a while, you realize that it's just so much, I learn so much more when I let that go and I can just I approach it from the eyes of a child.
Yeah.
Which children aren't skeptical. They just want to learn.
Yeah.
Like they're just genuinely curious. So yeah, I used to be like so skeptical. And then I just every time would be like, have my mind blown. And I'm like, okay, I guess there's still part of me that I want truth. So I don't want to go into a situation like I want to have that inner skeptic present because it's very helpful. But I would rather like let that go and just like be genuinely curious to learn and experience something.
Totally. Yeah. I found the same thing for me on my journey. I was very skeptical because I grew up atheist. And so I was not spiritual at all. It was something that I judged. It was something that I thought was like stupid as a teenager. And then the farther and farther along, I had some pretty big tragic things happen in my late teens. And when those things happened, I had no framework or belief to anchor myself into or belief outside of myself. And it made me really lost for so many years. And then finally, when I kind of got into wellness and spirituality and all of that, it was like I walked in really skeptical and I had to like really learn neuroscience and more like the quantum physics and like that kind of stuff to like something I could believe in. And the farther and farther along I get on my path, the more I've tried, the more I'm like, actually, I know nothing. I'm so open to all the different things. And like, it's built my belief system so much more because I'm like, you know what? This is something I used to think was crazy. And now I'm like, oh, I've seen everything else. I've been proved wrong about everything else at this point, you know?
Wow, that's so interesting. Yeah, that's a super fascinating journey. Like to have grown up atheist, because I feel I didn't grow up atheist. I grew up going to like a Protestant church, and it wasn't really a big part of my upbringing, but it was just there, you know?
Yeah.
But I definitely feel like I had this period in like college years where I felt like I was atheist. Like I was like, what do I believe in? I had no connection to any type of God or higher power, and it just, that was the most depressed time of my life. Like spirituality and this path has like really deeply supported my mental health, you know? I feel like it's made me such a better person. So like I just embrace it all now, because like you said, like what do we really know? And it's way more fun. I just think it's more fun to just be like, let's just like dive in and just explore and experiment and play.
Yeah. And be here for like all that the world and life has to offer. I'm like, I'll try it all. Like I want to just see, you know, maybe it's not for me, maybe it is, but like you learn along the way and you're curious and you learn about yourself, and it's really beautiful. So I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Briefly interrupting this episode for a very special announcement. If you are someone that has been loving this podcast, that you love this work, you really are ready to deepen in your own feminine embodiment journey, you are ready to expand your capacity to receive abundance and what you desire in your life, and you want to do it all in sisterhood, and you want to travel out of the country. Drum roll, please. I invite you to join us in Costa Rica in May of 2025. We have officially opened the doors for our Costa Rican Expanded Woman Retreat, where we are going to spend 5 days and 5 nights together in the jungle of Costa Rica and just go really deep together in sisterhood. So if you have desired to attend one of the It's Fucking Spiritual retreats and you want to join us in Costa Rica, it is going to be such an incredible time. There's going to be organic food. There's going to be deep workshops and so much bonding and sisterhood and beach bonfires and excursions and all of the things. And honestly, you guys, every single time that I have taken the leap and gone to something in person, my first ever retreat as an attendee was in Costa Rica. And that is where this podcast idea was actually born. And so every single time that I have chosen to take the leap and I've gone somewhere in person alone and nervous and ready for my expansion, there is so much transformation on the other side. It is honestly how I have built my life, has been from taking multiple days to go really deep, to receive reflections in sisterhood, and to really claim what I want out of life. And I invite you to do that with us if it's something that's calling you. This is by application only. So definitely go and fill out the application in the show notes. There's going to be so much information about the retreat, the dates, pricing, all of that in that application, and go and take a look. And if it's calling you, definitely apply. Even if you're on the fence, definitely apply, and we will review your application. And if you have any questions, you can email us at support@rachelgibler.com. And we hope that we will get the chance to meet you in Costa Rica in May. Yeah, I watched your video of the 10 lessons you learned before turning 30, and I loved all of the different lessons. And I'd love, is there anything like potent that you want to share with the listeners of, like, I know you said presence was something that was really big and being open-minded and curious. But is there any other like really big lessons that you've learned from walking this journey you could share with us?
It's a good question. So I feel like this comes up a lot. It comes up a lot with people I support. So I have a community called the Soul Creator Community. And for me, it's a movement for conscious creators and supporting creators who want to share conscious media and to create from their heart and their soul. And so for me, like that's been my whole journey, is like figuring out how to do that and how to also create my dream career and life and business around that. And something that like a lot of people say that they're struggling with is the clarity piece.
Yeah.
Of like, okay, I want to do this, but I just feel unclear. Or I feel like I want to know my purpose, but I feel really unclear and I need to get clear before I do anything. And I don't believe that you get clarity in a vacuum of trying to figure out in your mind, or doing like inner work. Yes, will support that, but clarity has to come from actually taking tangible action
Yeah.
and getting real-time feedback. So I feel like that's been one of the biggest lessons along my journey, not just as a creator, but in life, is getting clarity on anything. I always get clarity through just taking the small steps and then analyzing and reviewing what's happening in real time, and then listening to my intuition and making new decisions in real time. Clarity doesn't happen by like sitting, for months on end trying to like in your room figure it out. Like it happens by getting out there in the world. And so I just feel inspired to share that, because I feel like if there's anybody that's struggling to take that action because they want clarity, sometimes you got to just take the action and find the clarity along the way. And the biggest advice I have around that would be to take the action that is the highest excitement and to follow your excitement, because the excitement often is like leading us to our deepest dharma.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's so true. And I'm so glad that you brought that up too, because I also wanted to go there on the show, is just like, you support other conscious creators. And also so many people are probably looking at you being like, oh, I would love to be able to do that. Or people say that about, the podcast and stuff. And they always like, people often trip themselves up of like trying to like have all the pieces and all the ducks in a row before they take the leap. And I'm like, you'll never figure it out all in your head before. You just like won't even know. And then you'll start and think you know the thing, and then you're going to take a hard left and it's going to change and shift. And that's such a good piece of advice. And I'd love to follow that thread too, because I know you mentioned imposter syndrome with Wim Hof. Like how, I'm sure you hear this all the time, like in addition to the clarity, people are like, they have imposter syndrome and they're so scared. Like, what am I going to talk about? How did you overcome that piece?
Like literally diving in the deep end.
Yeah.
Like I'm saying, that video was the worst imposter syndrome I ever had. It was so potent because I just started my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
I didn't even have an audience, and this all just happens like, by taking action, these small little actions that just like led to then all of a sudden, like I'm in this epic journey with like my YouTube heroes, Wim Hof, who's somebody I've been wanting to create a video about. And I literally learned by just doing it.
Yeah.
And then you build the muscle. Your confidence builds from putting yourself in those situations and navigating them and overcoming them, and then realizing that, okay, I did it. Now what else can I do? And you build the muscle through again, taking the action and putting yourself in discomfort. You're most likely never going to feel ready. And I hear that a lot from the creators, that come to me with like what they're struggling with, and creators I work with is like, okay, I have this message that I feel really called to share. I feel like it's like coming from within my heart, and I want it to be an accurate representation of what's like really going on in my soul. And so like, I don't know if it's ready. I don't think it's ready for the world, but you're never going to feel ready. Like you have to share it before you feel ready.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the journey of self-discovery as a creator is like, you do it before you feel ready. And then you build your confidence in yourself by doing that.
Yeah. Oh, that's always what I talk about on the show too. Because every single time I've like jumped off the cliff, like the first time I ever posted anything, I chucked my phone across the room and it was like, this is so scary. Oh my God, I feel so vulnerable. And like, it's in like you keep jumping. Like I think I thought that there would be a point where I felt like I arrived. And there's definitely been like, I'm way more confident than I used to be. I feel way more embodied now. I feel like I know what I'm talking about so much more than I did. And at the same time, I'm still jumping. And it's just you're expanding your nervous system more and more. So yeah, you're nodding your head. Do you
100%.
Do you still feel imposter syndrome at all, or is it like?
I mean, the imposter syndrome I think is a normal, natural thing to feel. So I feel like when it comes up, I'm like, oh, it's just like the human thing that I'm experiencing again.
Totally.
But no, I totally agree. Is that like our bar just gets higher? Like I'm just about to shoot a video next week that's like so like exciting, but also like scary because it's like a new level, what I mean?
Love that.
And so that's there. Yes, there are many more levels that I want to climb to.
Yeah.
And so I think that, that's such a good point that you made is like, you just have to keep going.
Yeah.
And do the thing before you're ready and do the thing that scares you.
100%. And like also know that you're never going to fully arrive. Like I think people think like, oh, once I'm there, they look at someone that has a channel like yours or podcast and it's like, oh, they must never feel these things. They must never fear judgment. They must never, like have this, like feel fear or nervousness in any way. And I'm like, no, it's just literally the bar moves. 100%. And like it was, I just interviewed Marianne Williamson, which was like a big jump.
That's incredible.
Yeah, thank you. It was like great. And also like internally, I was like, oh my God, what the fuck? How did I end up here? I don't know. How did I end up in Washington, D.C. with Marianne Williamson? Right. And it's also such a great lesson that I continually learn on this path too, is that everybody's just human.
100%.
And it's like I've gotten really good at like not pedestalizing people, but that one, like, I still notice when threads are like, okay, whoa, and it's like really cool. And again, I'm sure you've gotten to meet so many different people too. Like, have you learned that lesson? Yeah. Like what's been the lesson for you when it comes to like, you've met so many people in this industry? Is there anything that you've learned like about, being on the inside of this industry, meeting all these people? Are there any lessons that you've gotten from that?
Yeah. So I feel I've learned from so many amazing guides and teachers, and like they've all impacted me in different ways and helped me shift and transform and evolve. And ultimately, as you just said, we are all just human. Yeah. And so any guide or teacher in the spiritual space that's supporting people has their own stuff that they're also dealing with. Yeah. And they don't have it all figured out. And so that's a really important thing, like to bring that humility. Yeah. Especially if you are somebody that's like guiding people, is to be humble and knowing that, like, I think the spiritual elitism or like that spiritual ego that can kind of come in, that's a big red flag to me, because that's like, to me, like just insecure person that maybe isn't fully embodied in what they're teaching. Because anybody who really is anchored in that like pure level of truth will have the humility to know that they also don't have all the answers.
Yeah, and are willing to share that.
Exactly.
Yeah, 100%. I talk about that on the show a lot too, is like the discernment around like making sure that you're learning from everyone that's leading you back home to the truth within yourself.
Yes, that is so important. I think the best teachers will empower you to listen to your own inner guidance system. And I've had instances, maybe not as documented on the channel, but like I've gone to different intuitives or astrologers that like try and tell me a certain thing about me or my life. And when it doesn't land or resonate, I'm usually like, no. Yeah. I had like, when I first moved to LA, I was super lost and I didn't know what I was doing, and I moved with no plan and just like money I saved from babysitting, and I'm like, what do I do? And I remember going to see this like world-renowned psychic person, right?
World-renowned is the first red flag.
Yeah. And I remember, I don't even know, this lady set it up for me, and she's like, this woman works with all the biggest celebrities and people, and everything she says is always true. And it was expensive. I didn't have the money to spend it, but I was like, but I need answers. Yeah. I'm like 22. Like, who do I do with my life? Tell me, psychic lady. And she told me like this whole life path, of like, this is what, you need to do. And right now, you need to get a job. You just moved here. I had just gotten like some job offer. It's some HR thing that I had no interest in. Yeah. She's like, you need to take that job because you need to get, you need to make money and like get grounded. And she just told me all these things about how my life was going to go. And I was like, I don't agree. Yeah.
No. I'm a no for that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I decided I didn't take the job. And then like a week later or something, I get my dream internship at BuzzFeed, which is like the catalyst of this whole journey happening. And yeah, that's where I learned how to make viral videos for YouTube. And yeah, but I think like that's such an important thing to remember, is anytime you're seeking the guidance of someone outside of yourself, really check in with yourself if it resonates. And if it doesn't, you do not have to take their advice.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And props to you for not listening, to having like enough of your core, even at 22, to be like, actually, I'm a no. Thank you. But I think people need to hear that, right? Is because, and also I think it's so important, like the people who are guiding, leading, especially psychics or anything like that in any way, it's like, they like to come from integrity and to be grounded and to leading people back to their own truth, because otherwise it's like people will listen to stuff. And so I think it's really important to have that conversation too. So thanks for bringing that.
for sure.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, okay. So for anybody that is maybe like wanting to start their own thing and they're like listening to this and they're really inspired by you or like what you've created. And I know you said taking the leap, but is there any other pieces of advice that you could give somebody that like wants to start their own channel or wants to like even like be an entrepreneur?
Right.
Yeah. And like kind of change their life.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I feel that there's so many people just awakening to that inner call.
Yes.
And they're feeling it in their heart and their soul. Like, I have something I came here to share. I have something like bubbling inside of me.
Yeah.
And so I feel that it really can just start with like the smallest steps and taking any type of small action. Again, following the highest excitement and just like following the breadcrumbs will ultimately your path is going to start to unfold. But you have to start with what I call exposure therapy.
Okay.
Especially when it comes to if you want to share yourself on social media and you want to put yourself out there on the internet, it's very scary. But you have to have the courage to create something and press publish and share it and keep doing that. It's like create, share, repeat. And that is the only way to really start to go down this path, especially if someone's interested in content creation, is to consistently share what you're creating, which can be one of the scariest things. But yeah, I support people with that process of like the exposure therapy of it. But you know, a lot of what I support people with is getting really clear first and foremost on their real core soul mission and that deeper why. Like, why do I really want to do this? Like, that is important, I think, when we're talking about clarity, to do some work around and create, you know, your mission statement or whatever it is that you can anchor to know the real soul reason why you're doing it. Because that's the thing that is going to support you in continuing. Yeah. Like, that's, for me, was the thing. Because I when I first started, I had that mission statement just like right next to my desk. Like, every day I was reading it. Yeah. And it was the thing that when I did not feel like making a video, I didn't feel like editing, I didn't feel like posting, I was scared to post, I just looked at that and I was like, but this is the mission, and this is the mission that my soul is on, so we're doing it anyways.
Yeah, that's so good and so important. And that's something that I've always said too, is like, you have to have a deeper why, because this shit can get challenging and to be consistent is challenging. Like, you have to really root yourself into like the purpose and like, what is your soul actually calling you to do? Because otherwise I would have quit a long time ago, you know, because it's not easy.
100%. And I think, you know, if it's coming from a place of like, oh, I want to be a creator because I want these external things.
Right. I want followers. Or I want, money. And it
does not work. It doesn't last. It doesn't work. Like, you will get burnt out. And you're already maybe going to get burnt out even if you're working like from the soul. Like, I've definitely gone through that. But like, I've never quit because I know where it's the why. It's been clear from the start. And again, it doesn't have to be crystal clear when you first start out, but at least anchoring to like that thing that if you're feeling it in your heart and in your body, okay, I have these ideas, or where's the deeper root of where that's coming from? Identify it and like clarify it and like let that be the anchor in the guidepost.
Yeah. What's your mission statement?
My mission statement now really is so simple. Like, it used to be in the beginning, it was like, the beginning was to educate, inspire, and empower others to live their healthiest, happiest lives. And now the mission of the channel is to awaken presence, curiosity, and connection.
I love that.
Simple. Yeah. And like those 3 words, I've done a lot of work around what it means to embody those words and just how I can bring that into everything that we create.
Yeah. What does that mean to you now in this moment?
I feel like awakening means that you open your eyes to the opportunity and the gift that we have available to us in this life experience, and to deepen into the presence of that, into the magic of being right here, right now with that opportunity, and to get really curious about this experience, and to look around, open your eyes, deepen into the present moment, and to really start to ask questions that your little inner child really wants the answers to and wants to learn, and what excites you to explore. And through that, the greatest gift is to build deep connections along the way. Because to me, part of being human is to experience this with other humans. And so the connection piece, that's why that's part of the mission statement, is like, it wouldn't mean much if I was not sharing this with people I love and getting to share it with this incredible community now online. Like, that's really why I do it. And so, those 3 words, presence, curiosity, connection, is really all integrates together. And so I do my best to really come back to that, deepen into that, embody it. Like, what does it mean to actually live from that place?
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful and so clear. And anybody listening to this, it's like, no matter if they're a creator or have their own business, like, every single person can relate to that in some way. It's like, that's really what we're doing here in the human experience, and like connecting with each other, and awakening to our own evolution, and being open and curious, and bringing the childlike joy and play and wonder, which is like, I love that you do that, and you're such a beautiful embodied example of that. So
thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you for asking that question. That even helps me to share it, just to like anchor it deeper.
Yeah. I always love that in interviews. I'm like, I'm always like reminded again when I get asked those things, and they like integrate. So really beautiful. Thank you for sharing with us. And for anybody that is a creator that wants to like work with you, how would they work with you in your membership, and like, what would that look like?
Yeah, for sure. So it's so cool that now I feel like we're all creators in some type of way. So like, true. Whether you're an aspiring content creator, or you're an entrepreneur, or you're a healer, or you have something that you're sharing, whether it's art or music, like, we all need to kind of learn the ropes of content creation on the internet and on social media. And so for me, with the Soul Creator community, really the mission is to support creators in clarifying their brand, unleashing their authentic expression, and then growing their community in an aligned way, like in a way that's coming from their heart and their soul, for the mission of more soul-led, heart-centered content on the internet. Yeah. Because I personally believe that the digital dimension is a huge opportunity for humanity's greatest awakening and evolution. And like, that's why we've been given this gift. And so to see it that way, and to talk about it that way, rather than all of the ways that we've been in fear around this evolution of technology, like, this community means so much to me, because I feel like, as my path has unfolded, my dharma has unfolded, it has been that, like, how do I share content from my heart that I feel like is going to have an impact and grow this aligned community that like I vibe with and resonate with. And so I love supporting creators on that journey. And so the Soul Creator community, it's an annual membership, and it also has, education, a core curriculum, and like live workshops, and it's super fun. And it merges like the super spiritual inner work with like the real deep strategy, tangible stuff.
Love that.
And that's like my jam, it's like, how do we take like, bring it from the sky to the earth, like take it from the ethers and like ground it into reality. Yeah. So that's what I've had to figure out. Like, as on my own path. So I really take people through that journey. We have such an awesome group. And so, they can go to the soulcreatorcommunity.com and learn more.
Well, we'll definitely put that in the show notes, so anybody that's inspired can like check it out and
totally.
check out what you do, because that's so important. Like, really bridging the two, like the ethereal and the 3-day. It's like not just about the vision, which is great, and the clarity, but also like, how do we do it?
And the consistency and the accountability around consistency, because that really is the only way to build something, is to be consistent over time and to show up day in and day out. And so I really like enjoy supporting people with that. Maybe they've had a hard time being consistent, and then now there's a community to like hold you accountable in love.
Yeah.
and like help you actually do the thing finally.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. So needed. I love that you're doing that work. And yeah, for anybody listening to this, and I know there's many of you out there that are listening and are like, have it on your heart. Before we wrap up, the last piece I want to touch on is something that you just said about instead of being in fear around the internet and like the ways in which it impacts our culture in a negative way, which yes, is one truth and way of looking at it. There's also such a big opportunity here, not only for us as individuals, but to awaken the planet. And I'd love to hear you expand on that because I think it's really inspiring for somebody to, if they have like, you know, a call on their heart to do this, like it's kind of a deeper why.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think that's why so many people are awakening to that and remembering that, because I do feel that it's part of humanity's evolution and for our highest good, and that we deeply need more conscious, soul-led, heart-centered content on the internet. We need it. And I know that everybody can often, you know, say that they have had some creator that they've seen, whether it's a podcast host or an artist or someone they've come across, you know, online that has changed their life.
Yeah.
And that's been my, you know, that's been the case for me.
Same.
And I've had my spiritual evolution and my awakening and, you know, the expansion of my consciousness has been deeply impacted by a lot of things I'm watching and seeing on my feed. And so like, what an opportunity to awaken consciousness with this gift and this medium. And I do believe that, yeah, it's like we have to be mindful of the language that we're using and the way that we're seeing this. And I just want to see more love on social media and more authentic expression coming from the inner child. Yeah. And so that's what this is all about for me. And we get to create our own sacred, safe spaces to do that. Like the internet is the Wild West, and that's why it's so terrifying for people to share, is because there's a deep fear of judgment and rejection, how you're going to be perceived, being misunderstood. It's so terrifying, but that's kind of like an inevitable part of life in general. So it's just like showing up online too, because it's just like what happens when you're human on earth is like you will get judged and misunderstood. Yeah. But if you can like allow that to happen and realize, again, the exposure therapy, and you just do it over and over, and you know why you're sharing and you know who you are on a deeper level, like that starts to not impact you. Like it maybe at first you're navigating how to deal with those things, but over time you will realize like how strong you are by continuously sharing your expression and being brave enough to share it for the reason of knowing that like you're going to impact someone's life. And you may not know how, and you may not know the extent of your impact, but if you know your deeper soul why, it's going to have that type of impact in some way. And it's so needed for more creators to be sharing from that place. And I've had a whole journey with that. And I feel like for me, it's been a deep journey of self-discovery. And it's cool to be like, okay, this does not affect me the way it used to. Totally. And now I feel like more confident and brave enough to like share even more of who I really am, you know? And it's just like a fun game again to like level up into. Yeah. But I do believe like the digital dimension we're co-creating, and we forget that we have like a very direct say and impact in how we co-create it. And I want to inspire people to like remember the opportunity, impact, and like how much they really do matter in this equation. Yeah.
I've never heard it said like that. And it's everything that I just so agree with and feel in my bones to be true. And you just said it so beautifully. So thank you for bringing that all together. Because it's like we forget that we have co-creation with the universe, and the internet being a, more microcosm than the macrocosm. It's like, it's a mirror for everything. So it's going to be a mirror to bring up your shit. That it's just a part of the human experience. And it's also going to be a catalyst for your own growth and evolution. And especially for myself too, I would not be who I am today without the internet, not only for like what I've created in my job, but like for the years and years and years of study and people that have greatly been impacting my life and been a teacher of mine that they don't even know. And then you and I are teachers and for people that we will never ever meet, and we will never have any idea the impact. And it's this beautiful ripple effect. And so I love that you inspire people to co-create and to put themselves out there and to lean into it, because at the end of the day, like, this is all a big cosmic game, and we get to play it however we want. And and I feel like for both of us, it's like walking that path of integrity and truth and sharing and curiosity is just like so at the forefront. And so, yeah, thank you for all that you do and for sharing that.
Yeah, you too, babe, because like I see you sharing what you share, and it's so inspiring to see your expression and the way that you so like eloquently share these things in an accessible way, but then also like the vulnerable things that you share. And even when I've seen you share somatic therapy, which is something that I've shared a lot, which can be super scary to put out there, but so important that people see that.
Thank you. Thanks for that reflection. It's been such an evolution and journey for myself too. So beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. And this was so fun. And like, I feel like I could hear your stories for so many more hours. I'm like going to go on a total binge of all the different things. And where can everyone find you?
Thank you for having me. This was so fun. So YouTube, Sky Life.
We'll link it.
at Sky Cowans, my Instagram, my TikTok, and the soulcreatorcommunity.com.
Great. Yeah. Well, we'll put it all in the show notes for you guys. Sky, thank you so much again for coming on. This was epic. And it's so fun because this is a very different episode than what we've typically had on, which I love having different people that bring all the different wisdom and stuff. So you guys, if you loved this episode, definitely share it with a friend. I loved all of the wisdom that Sky shared. And for any of the things that you want to check out, I know you're going to go binge watch her videos now, especially the Satan one in Mexico. So we will link that all in the show notes. And as always, I love you guys, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to the It's Fucking Spiritual podcast. I am so glad that you're here. And if this episode resonated with you, I invite you to share this with a friend that you feel needs to hear it. And if you are really feeling the love and support for this show, this podcast thrives off of your listens and your reviews. So I would love if you could leave us an honest review. We would love to hear your feedback, your thoughts, your questions, and it helps us get this podcast in the hands of more people and would mean so much to me to receive your support. So thank you.